It could be argued that the commitment of marriage is the most desired form of human relationship and that it is situated in modern society as the primary building block of the family structure. However, regardless of the importance of marriage, the research suggests that even couples who began their marriage with the best circumstances are still more likely than not to end their marriage through the process of divorce. Researcher Kobus Dupuli from the Institute of Psychology in South Africa has found that the most common reason marriages end is due to low satisfaction in the marriage itself as opposed to individual circumstances involving one partner. With marriage being as important as it is, the goal of having a lasting marriage is not only desired, but is in opposition with the reality presented by the research. In this documentary, with the help of a couple, counselor, and a recent widow, we aim to identify common key marital features, including communication, conflict, and intimacy, with the hopes of understanding the path that leads to a lasting marriage.
My name is Katie Dolslager. I am a resident in counseling, and I have been counseling couples for 3 years.
My name is Catherine Jacobs. I was married to Wayne Jacobs for 33 years. We had a wonderful marriage.
So we've been married 27 and we dated
year and a half.
Yeah, around 29 years.
We began by asking a simple question. Prior to getting married, did you do any premarital counseling or did you have a plan for your marriage?
We did. I wouldn't say it was the greatest premarital counseling. Now that Brian has done that a whole lot, he has definitely a different method and a different depth to the premarital we did. So we met with the pastor who married us. How many times did we meet with him?
3 times. And one time we planned the service, so it was 2 times.
Yeah, not a lot. I would say that Brian and I probably did more on our own because we read this book. One, I remember, The Mystery of Marriage, and it just talked about marriage, not like how to, but like what is marriage, which was a little deeper than just, oh, do this and do that. So we did that before we got married. And then there was another one. We've read some since too, but
yeah.
So I'd say we probably did more on our own than the pastor did, but I highly recommend it.
We did premarital counseling with the pastor from our church that we had known for many years. Wayne had known him before I knew him in his earlier years. And he was happy that we were together, and we just had good counseling sessions with him.
Next, we asked our expert to weigh in on if she thinks couples should partake in premarital counseling.
I definitely recommend that couples do premarital counseling for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the main reasons is to be able to sit in a room with the two of you, with someone who is non-biased and can look at both perspectives and figure out like, okay, how can we work through some of these more intense or more meaningful conversations that you probably should have before you end up making the commitment of marriage. There are lots of books that I would recommend that couples read before getting married if they are not interested or can't afford or can't find premarital counseling. And so I would first say seek out a counselor who can work through some of these conversations, be a third voice, kind of a sounding board for both of you. But if that is not possible, or if that's kind of intimidating, then really reading through some of these books together and having those conversations, because newsflash, marriage does not solve or fix all of those unspoken conversations and problems, but it actually amplifies it often. And so being able to have that conversation before you commit to marriage is really helpful so that you know how to navigate them when they come up in marriage.
Research suggests that effective and healthy communication skills are linked to higher marital satisfaction. Communication is found to both increase marital intimacy as well as work to provide relational maintenance. We then asked our couple and our widow if there was a time in their marriage when it almost ended.
There was not a time when our marriage almost ended, but like every couple, we had some rough spots. I think because we had strong faith, very strong faith, both of us, we were able to work through any problems that we had. And we had wonderful family support that ending our marriage never entered our minds. So we worked through our rough spots.
I would say definitely not almost ended for us, just because that's not an option. So go through hell and high water before that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it won't happen. So it's
No.
it's not like we'll go through hell and high water before it happens. It just won't happen. So,
No.
but we've definitely gone through difficult seasons, I would say, in our life and our family, and so that put a lot of strain on us. I think we were just normal life. We were just kind of rubbing each other the wrong way because of stresses in life.
Next, we asked our expert to weigh in on what seasons of life she sees that marriages tend to end.
I would say that this is really situation by situation basis, but one of the major things would be when your life starts to feel too busy or like there's too much going on that you don't have time for connection, for conversation, and to make one another your priorities. So this could look a variety of different ways. It could look like children. Children take up a lot of time and energy and space in marriages. And so having children being consumed with like their needs and then not focusing on your marriage can be one situation. Also, your work. So if you are someone who really values your work environment and really values the work that you're doing and puts that on a pedestal instead of your romantic partner, then that can cause a lot of tension. It can also take away from the time and energy that you can put into that marriage. And so, again, I don't know if it's necessarily a season, but when you stop putting in the effort, when you start filling that time with other things rather than choosing to be with one another, I would say that is when couples tend to start going downhill when their marriage is not on the front burner.
Next, we asked our couples how they work through rough spots and seasons in their marriages.
How do we?
Yeah.
Well, we just communicate well. That's what I would think, just a lot of prayer and growing it yourself as a Christian I think, makes a difference.
Good. Also, I would say we've always had really important, deep friendships with other people. So we always asking other people why people the wiser than us, people who've been married a long time. Hey, how'd you do this? How do you walk through this? You know what I mean? Or hey, Beth's driving me crazy. So what do I do with that? Or whatever. I'm driving her crazy. What do I do? So we always have a team around us of people that love us and care for us, and we care for them and love them, and they're cheerleaders and sounding boards for us.
Next, we asked our expert for advice about working through rough spots and seasons in a marriage.
Again, I think learning healthy ways of communication is vital. Not avoiding, not exploding, not shoving it under the rug, but really learning how can we confront the situation so that we can learn from it and so that we can grow from it. And so this takes vulnerability. It takes the ability to say, hey, something's not working here and we need to change something. So whether that is getting outside help, such as going to see a counselor, going to a marriage conference, going to like whatever it is that kind of resets you, is my main piece of advice. Also, I would say sometimes things have to get really hard in order to get better. And so when people come to counseling for their marriage, they don't realize all of the muck that we're going to kind of resurface in their relationship, and that takes time. So what I would say is it takes time to have these conversations. It also takes vulnerability and a willingness from both partners. It can't just be a one-sided thing. So making sure that you are putting in the time, putting in the effort, and learning how can we communicate so that we can get through this rough season, because that will eventually help you when another rough season comes in your way. So not avoiding it, not exploding, but really looking at those conversations and facing them head on so that you can grow from it and continue having a healthy marriage.
Consistent conflict is cited as one of the highest reasons for marital dissatisfaction. By finding appropriate ways to properly manage the natural conflict in their relationships, couples tend to be more satisfied in their marriages. A good rule of thumb for when it's time to reach for help is when the conflict gets so extreme that the person you are married to becomes the person that you constantly complain about. It must also be noted that while finding ways to manage marital conflict is important, the ways in which people choose to handle conflict are oftentimes culturally based, specifically in regards to collectivist and individualistic cultures. In the end, it is not about the relationship existing without conflict, but the ratio of positive exchanges to negative ones. Next, we asked both our couple and our widow how they would say their love for their spouse has changed over time and what are some things that they actively do in their relationship to keep their marriage healthy.
Of course, we had a very passionate love that just carried us through anything and everything that we faced. As the years went on, our faith became stronger and stronger, and I think our relationship with each other became stronger in a different way. We became so dependent upon each other. We were like one unit that could not operate.
As you go through life together and you learn more about that person and you sacrifice for each other and you put the other person first, I think that love definitely deepens. It just becomes more of a stable thing, more committed.
Mature.
Yeah, a more mature love.
So we try to have a regular date time. So it's one thing I tell my couples when I'm doing premarital counseling, but it's just easy to be so busy and you're just disconnected and you don't ever really reconnect. And so we try to regularly have some type of date that we do.
Research identifies different types of intimacy in marriages, including intention, emotion, sexuality, gender, and involvement. These are not fixed concepts and are known to change and evolve due to longevity. In a similar fashion to communicative needs, it is best for couples to identify changes in intimacy and then to work together on how that change will impact their marriage. Part of intimacy is the need of the self and how two people both improve themselves inside of a marriage. The research shows that couples either grow apart or grow together, and then identifying common interests greatly increases marital satisfaction. Couples in lasting marriages are able to identify communication problems and, if need be, learn how to communicate effectively with one another. In fact, it is believed that communication is what breeds intimacy. Conflict will happen in relationships, but when marriages last, those conflicts are dealt with appropriately and the couples are able to reach out for help when they are unable to effectively solve problems themselves. The role of intimacy in relationships cannot be underestimated. Couples that wish for their marriages to last should do their best to maintain all aspects of intimacy and, when needed, address the issues created by a lack of intimacy. It has also been found that the health of a marriage oftentimes correlates to at what level of importance the couple believes the concept of marriage to have in the first place.